If I were to say the perfect rack of ribs, what adjectives come to mind? Sticky, savory, tender, succulent. I think we're on the right track. Today, we'll be making some baby backs that check all of those boxes and don't require you to leave your kitchen or fire up the grill. What's more, we'll be pairing it with some Brussels sprouts. Not the typical carb overload of potato salad or french fries, but an excellent side dish, all the same. We're going to saute them in a pan and toss them in a bacon and pomegranate vinaigrette. All of this on your dinner table in less time than it would take if you did it on a grill or smoker. We will begin with one baby back rack of pork ribs. Now, it's typically going to come with this stuff, which is called silver skin. It's a membrane that no matter how low and slow or long you cook it, is never going to get tender. So using a knife, get up underneath the silver skin, and once you've separated it from the meat or bone, use a paper towel to pull it away. You may get lucky and get it all in one fell swoop, or like me here, pull it off in 3 or 4 strips, but do try and get as much as you can, if not all of it. Next, we're going to go down over these ribs with just a little bit of plain yellow mustard. This is going to give them a nice seasoning and help the additional seasoning, which we're going to add here in a moment, stick. That additional seasoning right now is pretty simple. Just some coarse salt and some freshly cracked black pepper. Next up, we're going to cover these very tightly with aluminum foil. Use multiple pieces if you have to, but we need to create a tight seal around the edge of the pan so that these steam in the oven, which they will go into now at 300 degrees for 2.5 to 3 hours. We'll be adding more pork to this dish in the form of bacon, which we're going to cook over medium heat in a skillet. You want to cook it so that it is fairly crispy because we're going to be adding it to a vinaigrette later. Once it's done, remove it to drain and cool, but keep that pan and that fat. Go ahead and put 1 cup of pomegranate juice into a pot over medium heat and reduce by half. Take that half and divide in half again, so you've got about 1/4 cup reserved. To this, we're going to add 1/3 cup of ketchup, 2 tablespoons of dark soy sauce. You could use regular soy, but dark soy helps to color the ribs a little better. 2 tablespoons of yellow mustard, 1 tablespoon of regular or smoked paprika, either would work fine here. We'll be adding some additional sweetness in the form of 2 tablespoons of honey. If you wanted to keep this a totally vegan barbecue sauce, you could use brown sugar or maple syrup. 2 tablespoons of vinegar. I'm using red wine vinegar here. And for additional smoky flavor, since we're not going to be grilling these, just a splash, maybe half a teaspoon of liquid smoke. Finally, 1 tablespoon of sriracha for some heat and garlic flavor, and just stir that over low heat until it's all come together. Set that aside and we'll use it on our ribs later. Speaking of which, after about 2.5 hours, mine were perfectly ugly, but perfectly cooked. I like to go ahead and at this point cut them up into 1/3 or 1/4 racks for individual serving portions. You can see how easily that knife is going through that very tender meat. And now we're going to glaze them with our barbecue sauce. We're going to do this 3 different times. Once on the top, in for 10 minutes at 425. We'll pull them out and do the bottoms, and then finally 10 more minutes with an additional glaze on the top. Make sure you get all those edges and sides. That's what they look like after 10 minutes. As I said, we're going to go ahead and glaze the bottom side so we get flavor all around. So it's a total of 30 minutes of glazing time at 425. That will render them thusly. I don't know about you, but those look just about perfect to me. Glossy, sticky, bubbling hot. Now let's talk about Brussels sprouts. To prepare them, we're going to take off these small outer leaves that could burn or get bitter in the pan. We're also going to cut off the very dry, woody part of the stem on the bottom, but don't go too deep or the sprout can fall apart. You just want to take that edge off and go right down through the middle of it, bisecting it. Go ahead and do up your whole batch. And remember that pan with that bacon fat that cooled off? Yep. Now it's time to put all of those Brussels sprouts cut side down into the cool pan. You want to try and put them in an even layer as best you can so that those cut sides are all making good contact with that bacon fat. Push them down, and we're going to go ahead and cover these with a lid or with aluminum foil and cook them over medium heat for about 10 minutes. Of course, don't forget to season with salt and pepper. After 10 minutes, that cut side is going to be nice and brown, so give them all a flip, and let's make our dressing. 2 tablespoons, which I very poorly measured there, of our pomegranate reduction go into a bowl, along with 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard, or the mustard of your choice, a nice fresh cracking of pepper and sprinkling of salt, and 1 crushed or finely minced clove of garlic. To this, we will add roughly 1/4 cup of olive oil, whisking thoroughly until it incorporates into a vinaigrette. After about 5 more minutes in that steaming hot pan, those Brussels sprouts are perfectly tender, nice and crispy, so add them to your vinaigrette and toss everything to combine. Once that's done, don't forget about our bacon, right? Go ahead and dice that up into little small bits and lovingly drizzle it and crumble it over your warm Brussels sprout salad. One final toss, and this dish is ready to plate up and serve.
Well, let's see how this turned out. So hot. The ribs are so tender. That steaming process in the oven gets them just as tender as if they were smoked all day on a grill. If you have a pressure cooker, you can do it even faster. These Brussels sprouts are out of bounds. The tangy pomegranate juice gives them a wonderful flavor. It really helps to cut through the richness, the sweetness, and the fattiness of the ribs. Whether you don't have a grill or just don't feel like firing it up, great ribs are just a couple hours away. I hope you'll give this recipe a try. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please take a second and do so. Click that little bell for notifications for future videos. And until I see you next week, go make something delicious.